The flashing lights never stop in Los Angeles. Even at 3 in the morning, when Sunset Boulevard should be sleeping, there's always someone with a camera, someone waiting in the shadows outside the Nice Guy or Craig's, hoping to catch a moment of someone else's breakdown. I know because I used to be their favorite target. My name is Justin Bieber, and for years, I was the kid everyone loved to hate. The prodigy who flew too close to the sun, the cautionary tale parents told their children about fame. But what they never understood, what the tabloids could never capture in their grainy photos, was that I wasn't rebelling, I was drowning. Picture this. It's 2018, and I'm sitting in my car outside a recording studio in West Hollywood. The engine's running, but I can't move. My hands are shaking on the steering wheel, and I'm 24 years old, but I feel ancient. The radio's playing one of my old songs, Baby, and I want to punch through the windshield because that kid, that 13-year-old with the swooped hair and the innocent smile, feels like someone I murdered. I'd been in the studio for 6 hours, trying to lay down vocals for a track that should have taken 30 minutes. But every time I opened my mouth, nothing came out right. The producers kept looking at each other with that expression I'd grown to recognize, disappointment wrapped in professional patience. "Let's take 5, JB, they'd say, and I'd nod like I just needed water, like I wasn't completely falling apart from the inside. The truth nobody knew? I hadn't been sober in 3 days. Not because I was partying, those days were behind me, but because being sober meant feeling everything. The weight of a million expectations. The echo of every mistake I'd made splashed across TMZ. The ghost of who I used to be, haunting every corner of this city. Los Angeles had become my prison. From the hills where I'd bought my first mansion at 17, to the Venice boardwalk where I'd tried to disappear into the crowd and failed. Every street corner held a memory I wanted to forget. The city of angels had watched me grow up, screw up, and now it was watching me give up. My phone buzzed. Hailey. We'd been talking again after years of on and off, but I couldn't answer. What would I say? That Justin Bieber, the guy with everything, was sitting in a parking lot contemplating whether the world would be better off without him? That the music had died somewhere between the Believe tour and my 5th arrest? That I was so tired of being a disappointment that I'd rather be nothing at all? I didn't know it then, but she was already on her way. Somehow, Hailey always knew. She'd learned to read the silence between my texts, the spaces where words should be. And that night, while Los Angeles glittered with its false promises and endless appetite for broken stars, she was driving through the hills to find me. When her white Mercedes pulled up next to mine, I didn't look at her. I couldn't. But she got out anyway, walked around to my passenger door, and got in without asking. We sat there in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably minutes, watching the city lights blur through my tears I was too proud to wipe away. Then she said 6 words that changed everything. 6 words that nobody, not my managers, not my family, not the thousands of fans who claimed to love me, had ever thought to say. 6 words that would become the foundation of who I'd become. But to understand why those words mattered, you need to know how far I'd really fallen.
The problem with being discovered at 12 is that you never learn who you are without an audience. By the time I turned 16, I had 50 million people watching every move I made, and I'd never had a first kiss that wasn't photographed, never made a mistake that wasn't monetized. I remember the exact moment I realized I was lost. It was 2017, a Tuesday afternoon in Calabasas. I'd just bought my 7th car, a matte black Lamborghini, and I was sitting in my garage, surrounded by machines worth more than most people's houses, feeling absolutely nothing. The concrete walls echoed with silence, and I realized I hadn't had a real conversation with anyone in weeks. Sure, I'd talked to people, managers, lawyers, the guy who delivered my green juice from Eriwan, but I hadn't connected with another human being in so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like. The touring had broken something in me. 200 shows a year since I was 13. Hotel rooms that all looked the same whether I was in Tokyo or Tampa. The sound of 10,000 people screaming my name had become white noise. And somewhere between the Purpose Tour and its aftermath, I'd lost my own purpose entirely. I started self-medicating because it was easier than self-reflecting. Xanax to sleep, Adderall to wake up, and whatever else to fill the spaces in between. The pills came from doctors with offices in Beverly Hills who never asked questions, just wrote prescriptions for the kid who sang sorry. And I was sorry. Sorry for who I'd become. Sorry for who I couldn't be. Sorry for existing in a way that seemed to disappoint everyone no matter what I did. The paparazzi loved this version of me. They'd camp outside the Peppermint Club or Delilah, waiting for me to stumble out at 2 a.m., They got their shots, me looking hollow-eyed and thin, surrounded by people I didn't really know, wearing designer clothes that felt like costumes. The headlines wrote themselves. Bieber's downward spiral continues. Pop star out of control. Is this the end for Justin? But here's what the cameras couldn't capture. The panic attacks that hit me in the middle of Rodeo Drive, forcing me to hide in bathroom stalls while my security stood guard. The nights I drove up Mulholland Drive, looking at the city spread out below, wondering what would happen if I just kept driving, never stopped, disappeared into the desert beyond the mountains. My team tried interventions disguised as meetings. We'd sit in conference rooms with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Century City, and they'd show me charts and graphs of declining sales, decreased engagement, canceled endorsements, as if I didn't know, as if I couldn't feel myself disappearing one day at a time. They wanted the old Justin back, the one who smiled on command and hit every note perfectly. But that kid was gone, buried under the weight of a decade in the spotlight. I tried to explain it once to my manager. We were at Soho House in West Hollywood, and I told him I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. He nodded sympathetically, then asked if I could at least pretend to be alive for the upcoming press tour. That's when I knew nobody really understood. They saw Justin Bieber, the brand, the investment, the meal ticket, not just in the human being who was suffocating under the weight of his own name. Church became my last refuge, but even there I felt like a fraud. I'd sit in the back row at Church Home in Beverly Hills, wearing a hoodie pulled low, trying to find God in the midst of my mess. Pastor Judah would talk about redemption and second chances, and I'd want to believe him. But how many second chances do you get before people stop counting? I'd lost track of my own mistakes, let alone everyone else's, Pally. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. I was supposed to perform at a private event in the Hollywood Hills, some tech billionaire's birthday party. 5 songs, $2 million. Easy money for 20 minutes of work. But when I got there, standing backstage in this massive mansion overlooking the city, I couldn't do it. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My voice cracked during sound check. The songs I'd sung 1,000 times felt foreign in my mouth. I walked out, left $2 million on the table, and drove home in silence while my phone exploded with calls from everyone who depended on me for their paycheck. That night, I sat on my bathroom floor looking at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. Bleached hair, tattoos I'd gotten to feel something, anything, eyes that looked like they belonged to someone decades older. That's when I texted Hailey. Just 3 words. I'm not okay. Hailey Baldwin knew me before I was Justin Bieber. That's the thing people don't understand. We met when we were kids, backstage at the Today Show, when her dad, Steven, introduced us. I was 15, awkward despite the fame, and she was 13, confident in a way that had nothing to do with her famous last name. She saw through the image from day one. We tried dating before, back in 2016, but I wasn't ready. I was still running from myself, using relationships like Band-Aids on bullet wounds. I hurt her then, disappeared when things got real,
chose the chaos over the calm she offered. It was easier to be with people who expected nothing from me, except the high of being with Justin Bieber. Hailey expected me to be human, and that terrified me. But when she got that text, she didn't hesitate. 20 minutes later, she was at my door in the hills, wearing sweatpants and one of my old tour hoodies she'd never returned. No makeup, no pretense, just Hailey. She didn't say anything at first, just pulled me into a hug that lasted so long I forgot what it felt like to hold myself together. We drove that night. No destination, just movement. Through Laurel Canyon, past the Chateau Marmont where I'd had too many bad nights, down to the PCH where the ocean met the city. She drove while I talked, really talked, for the first time in years, about the pressure, the pills, the emptiness that fame had carved out of me, about how I'd been performing for so long I didn't know who I was when the music stopped. I don't even like who I am, I told her as we parked at El Matador Beach in Malibu, the moon reflecting off the water. I look at old videos of myself and think I killed that kid, the happy one, the one who believed in something. Hailey turned to me then, and in the dim light of the dashboard, I saw she was crying too, but not from pity, from recognition. She said, "You didn't kill him, you buried him. There's a difference. Buried things can be dug back up." We started meeting in secret after that, not dating, just existing together. She'd come over and we'd sit by my pool in Toluca Lake, not talking about the future or the past, just being present. She taught me about stillness, about finding God in the quiet moments instead of the loud ones. We'd pray together, real prayers, not the performative kind I'd done for Instagram. She introduced me to therapy, real therapy, not the Hollywood kind where they tell you what you want to hear. Dr. Busby's office in Brentwood became my sanctuary. Twice a week, I'd sit on that brown leather couch and excavate years of trauma I'd buried under success. The abandonment issues from my father's absence, the identity crisis of being public property since puberty, the addiction that wasn't just to substances, but to validation, to being needed, to being Justin Bieber. The hardest part was getting sober, not from the drugs. That was medical, manageable with the right help. It was getting sober from the lifestyle, from the enablers, from the version of myself I'd created to survive. I had to fire half my team, the ones who'd gotten too comfortable with my dysfunction. I had to set boundaries with family members who saw my recovery as an inconvenience to their lifestyle. Hailey was there through all of it. When I'd shake from withdrawals, she'd hold me. When I'd rage about the unfairness of it all, she'd listen without judgment. When I'd want to give up, she'd remind me of who I could be, not who I'd been. We spent hours driving through LA, reclaiming the city that had become my prison. She showed me her LA, the flower market downtown at 5 a.m., the hiking trails in Griffith Park where nobody cared about celebrities, the hole-in-the-wall taco stands in Boyle Heights where they didn't even recognize me. She helped me see that the city wasn't the problem. My relationship with it was. One night, we were at In-N-Out on Sunset, sitting in my car, eating burgers like normal people, when she asked me something nobody had asked in years. What do you actually want, Justin? Not what your team wants, not what your fans want. What do you want? I thought about it for so long that our food got cold. Finally, I said, I want to make music because I love it again, not because I have to. I want to wake up and not feel like I'm disappointing someone. I want to be someone you'd be proud to be with. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and said, I'm already proud of you. You're fighting for your life. Most people never even try. But even with her support, even with therapy and sobriety and all the right moves, I still felt broken. I was going through the motions of recovery without really believing I deserved it. The shame was like a second skin I couldn't shed. Every article about my past, every joke on late-night TV, every person who looked at me with that mixture of pity and fascination, it all confirmed what I believed. I was too damaged to be truly loved.
Enjoying the story? Hit the like button, subscribe, drop your comment, and turn on the notifications. Let's keep going.
The night everything changed started like any other in that strange period of my life. It was June 2018, and I had been sober for 3 months. Hailey and I were officially together again, but I kept waiting for her to realize she'd made a mistake. I was better, but not well. Functional, but not whole. We were at my place in Beverly Hills, the one I'd bought to represent my fresh start. Modern, minimal, nothing like the party houses of my past. She was cooking. Hailey actually cooked, unlike anyone else I'd dated, making her grandmother's pasta recipe while I sat at the kitchen island, watching her move around like she belonged there. "You're staring," she said without turning around. "I'm memorizing. For when you leave." She stopped stirring the sauce, turned off the burner, and faced me. "Why do you always do that?" "Do what?" "Act like I'm temporary, like I'm just visiting your life instead of living in it with you." I couldn't answer because she was right. Every moment with her felt borrowed, like I was stealing happiness I didn't deserve. The shame was a constant companion, whispering that she could do better, that she would do better once she saw who I really was beneath the recovery rhetoric. "I'm broken, Hales," I said finally. "And yeah, I'm working on it. But what if this is as good as it gets? What if I'm always going to be the guy who almost destroyed himself? The cautionary tale, the could have been." She walked around the island, took my face in her hands, and made me look at her. Really look at her. And then she said the 6 words that rewired everything. "You don't have to be perfect." I started to speak, but she continued. "You don't have to be perfect for me to love you. You don't have to be perfect for God to love you. You don't have to be perfect to deserve happiness. You just have to be real. You just have to be trying. You just have to be you. Not the image, not the brand, not the comeback story, just Justin." I broke down. Not the pretty tears you see in movies, but the ugly, can't-breathe, snot-running kind of crying that comes from years of holding everything in. She held me through it. This woman who could have had anyone, choosing to hold the broken pieces of someone who'd forgotten he was worth holding. "I've watched you for years. Even when we weren't together, I watched you struggling, and my heart broke every time, not because you were failing, but because you thought you had to be perfect to be loved. That's not how love works, Justin. Love is showing up even when you're a mess. Love is choosing someone not despite their struggles, but through them." That night shifted something fundamental in me. For the first time since I was 12 years old, I considered the possibility that I was enough. Not perfect, not fully healed, not the ideal version of myself, but enough. We got engaged a month later. Not the big public spectacle everyone expected, but quietly, privately, just us in the Bahamas. I proposed with my grandmother's ring at sunset. No cameras, no audience, just truth. "I'm not perfect," I told her, echoing her words, "but I promise to be real with you, to keep trying, to love you with whatever whole parts of me exist, and to let you love the broken parts too." She said yes, but more importantly, she said, "I'm not marrying who you're going to become. I'm marrying who you are right now, today, in this moment." We got married twice, once at a courthouse in New York because we couldn't wait, and later at the Montage Palmetto Bluff in South Carolina with our families. But the real wedding happened that night in my kitchen in Beverly Hills, when she gave me permission to be human. The world watched our wedding with its typical cynicism. The headlines predicted how long we'd last, analyzed our body language, waited for cracks to show.
But they didn't understand that we'd already survived the hardest part. She'd seen me at my absolute worst and chose to stay, not to fix me. Hailey never tried to fix me, but to stand beside me while I fixed myself. Recovery isn't linear. There were setbacks, days when the darkness crept back in, when the shame felt stronger than the healing. But now I had an anchor, someone who reminded me daily that perfection wasn't the goal, authenticity was. She taught me that vulnerability wasn't weakness, but the ultimate strength. Music started flowing again, but differently. Songs like Lonely and Anyone came from the real places, the broken places, the healing places. I stopped trying to recreate who I had been and started creating who I was becoming. The melodies carried truth now, not just hooks designed to trend.
It's been years since that night in my kitchen, and I still carry those 6 words with me like a talisman. You don't have to be perfect. Los Angeles looks different to me now. The city that once felt like a prison has become a place of redemption. I drive down Sunset Boulevard and see not where I fell apart, but where I learned to put myself back together. The recording studios in Hollywood aren't crime scenes anymore. They're sanctuaries where I turn pain into purpose. Hailey and I built a life that the cameras can't quite capture. They get the red carpets, the fashion weeks, the polished moments, but they miss the Tuesday afternoons at our place in Beverly Hills, making dinner together while our dog Oscar begs for scraps. They miss the prayer circles in our living room, the therapy sessions we do together, the quiet victories of ordinary days lived well. I think about that kid with the swooped hair sometimes, the one I thought I'd murdered. Turns out he was just waiting for someone to tell him he didn't have to carry the weight of everyone's expectations, waiting for permission to be human. Hailey didn't just save my life, she gave me permission to live it. The truth about hitting bottom is that it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just sitting in a car outside a studio, unable to move. Sometimes it's having everything and feeling nothing. Sometimes it's needing someone to see through your perfect image to the imperfect person beneath and choosing to love that person instead. I still go to therapy every week. I still work on my sobriety every day. I still struggle with the voice that says I need to earn love through perfection. But now I have a counter voice, one that sounds like Hailey, one that sounds like hope, one that reminds me that love isn't a reward for being perfect, it's a gift for being real. If you're reading this and you're in your own valley of shadows, surrounded by success but dying inside, wearing a mask that gets heavier every day, I want you to know something. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be the image everyone expects. You just have to be willing to be seen, really seen, by someone who can love you through the mess. Those 6 words changed my life because they gave me permission to stop performing and start living. They taught me that redemption isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. And wholeness includes the cracks, the scars, the places where we broke and healed stronger. Today, when young artists ask me for advice, I don't talk about hit songs or brand building. I tell them to find someone who sees them when the cameras are off, someone who loves the person, not the persona. Because at the end of the day, when the screaming fans go home and the lights turn off, you're left with yourself. And if you're lucky, really lucky, you're left with someone who looks at all your imperfect pieces and says, "This is enough. You are enough." That's the love that saves us, not the love of millions, but the love of one person who sees us clearly and chooses to stay.
Those 6 words weren't just permission. They were prophecy. Because once I stopped trying to be perfect, I finally became real. And real, it turns out, is so much better than perfect could ever be.
If you watched until here, thank you. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love reading your messages. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you never miss another story like this. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee. Any amount helps a lot. Link in the pinned comment.